The vastness of space stretched endlessly, filled with sparkling stars, swirling galaxies, and the quiet hum of the universe. Amid this cosmic sea, a small human spacecraft, the Aurora, glided with steady precision. Its sleek metallic body reflected distant starlight, a tiny beacon of human curiosity and determination. Inside, Captain Mara Klein sat at the control panel, her eyes scanning the instruments and the stars beyond the viewport. Mara had traveled farther than any human before her. The mission was simple yet dangerous: to explore the uncharted sectors of the galaxy and observe new civilizations. Humanity had spread into space, learning to survive among the stars, but this was different. She was venturing into a part of the galaxy untouched by human eyes. As the Aurora approached a strange, shimmering planet, Mara noticed its unusual colors. Unlike Earth or any colony she had seen, this world radiated a soft, glowing light. The atmosphere glimmered in shades of green and violet, and massive crystalline formations rose from the surface like natural towers. It looked peaceful, yet the human mind sensed a strange energy that pulsed beneath its beauty. Mara's communicator beeped, signaling that she had entered the planet's orbit. She adjusted the controls carefully, bringing the ship closer to the surface. "Scanning for life signs," she murmured, watching as her instruments flickered. The results came back unusual: a civilization with advanced technology, life forms she had never studied before, and something that felt strange. Below her, the Valari civilization thrived. They were unlike any species humans had encountered. Tall and slender, with smooth silver-blue skin and large reflective eyes, the Valari moved with grace and precision. Their cities sparkled under the planet's soft glow, with towers that curved elegantly and structures that seemed alive. Ships and drones floated silently above their streets, performing tasks with perfect coordination. Mara's heart raced, not from fear, but from excitement. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "The first contact with a completely new species. Let's see what they're made of." She carefully maneuvered the Aurora through the atmosphere, avoiding detection as much as possible. The Valari's technology was advanced. Even small movements could be noticed by their surveillance systems. But Mara had trained for this. She had studied countless alien civilizations, learning how to approach without triggering hostility. From a distant observation tower, the Valari watched. Thalor, the leader of their science council, tilted his head as he observed the unusual object descending from the sky. His eyes widened in curiosity. "What is this?" he asked softly. His voice was calm, almost emotionless, but his mind raced. No species from known sectors could travel here without detection. And yet, here it is. The Valari had lived for thousands of cycles, mastering space travel and exploration. They had never feared anything. Yet something about this small human vessel caused a ripple of unease in Thalor. Inside the Aurora, Mara initiated the landing sequence. The spacecraft's legs extended, and it touched down on a crystal plateau with precision. She exited the ship, stepping onto the alien surface. The ground shimmered beneath her boots, but it was solid. The air was breathable thanks to her portable life support system, but it carried a faint metallic scent. She raised her arms, scanning the environment. The Valari had not approached yet, but sensors detected dozens of life forms observing her from the city below. Mara smiled. She had expected curiosity. Every species had it. But the Valari's gaze was different. It was precise, calculated, and cold. She walked toward a crystalline tower nearby, examining the strange formations. "These are natural," she said aloud, tapping one of the glowing structures. "But they interact with energy differently. Fascinating." Unseen to Mara, the Valari deployed drones to follow her. Thalor watched the feed, analyzing her movements. He noticed her unpredictability. She did not move in patterns or repeat behaviors like other species they had studied. She observed, touched, and adapted. It was troubling. "Why does she not fear?" one of his council members asked. "Exactly," Thaler replied. "No species approaches a foreign world with such confidence, and yet she moves as if she owns the place. She is different." Mara continued to explore, finding small alien devices partially buried in the crystal. She held one in her hand, studying it. It activated in her presence, projecting a holographic map of the city below. Her eyes lit up. "Interesting. They're monitoring energy flows, not population. I can use this to learn their structure without being detected." She moved carefully, noting every detail. Her curiosity and calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the Valari drone's calculated movements. The aliens were logical, predictable, and precise. Mara was neither. Back in the observation tower, Thalor's unease grew. "Her behavior is unpredictable. She adapts. She learns. She is not like any species we know. And yet she is alone." One of the Valari scientists stepped forward. "Should we make contact?" Thaler shook his head. "Not yet. Observe. Learn. Humans have a potential we have not anticipated. Proceed with caution." Mara, sensing a presence, paused. Her instincts told her she was being watched. She smiled faintly. Humans had evolved to detect danger, even when unseen. "Hello?" she called softly, though no one responded. Still, she felt eyes on her. Her exploration led her to a valley where crystalline formations merged into natural bridges. As she walked across, she discovered a hidden Valari research station partially concealed within the crystals. Mara knelt, scanning the devices outside. "Ah, they're studying energy manipulation. Clever." She made mental notes. Humans always learn from their observations, but Mara's intelligence allowed her to do more. She could adapt in real time. That night, under the twin moons of the planet, Mara set up a small observation camp. She had been careful not to be noticed, but sensors indicated that the Valari were still studying her from a distance. She wrote in her journal, "These beings are advanced but rigid. Their society is logical, organized, and free from fear, but they lack flexibility. They do not understand improvisation. I wonder, if they did, would they survive as easily as they think?" Unseen, the Valari Council convened. "She is dangerous," Thalor said quietly, "not because she seeks to harm us, but because she exposes our weaknesses. She is fearless, adaptable, and unpredictable. And in that unpredictability lies power we cannot control." Mara, meanwhile, looked up at the stars, her thoughts wandering. She felt alive in ways she never had before. Humanity thrived on challenge, on the unknown. She smiled, knowing this encounter would change everything, for her and perhaps for the Valari. The night passed, and with dawn came Mara's next move. She planned to explore the city, but she would not walk openly. Humans relied on strategy, intelligence, and courage. She would learn their secrets, not just observe. Above, Thalor and his council monitored her every movement. The first human had arrived, and the Valari were witnessing something unprecedented, a being who defied expectation, who acted without fear, and who might reveal truths they had hidden for centuries. Mara's first day on the planet ended with no conflict, but tension hung in the air. The Valari realized they were observing something remarkable. Their systems, their rules, and their confidence were being challenged, not by weapons, but by human will and ingenuity. And somewhere deep in the Valari minds, a question emerged, one they had never asked before. Could a single human, so far from home, change the balance of power in the galaxy? Mara looked at the rising suns, unaware that her arrival had already sent ripples through an entire civilization. Fear was something she had not experienced here, but for the Valari, it had already begun. The next day, the planet shimmered under its twin suns, casting long, multicolored shadows across the crystalline landscape. Captain Mara Klein stood at the edge of a ridge overlooking the Valari city. From her vantage point, she could see towers that curved elegantly like living forms and streets that shimmered with energy flows. Drones moved in perfect patterns, carrying supplies and scanning the city for anomalies. Mara took a deep breath, feeling the excitement stir in her chest. Today would be different. Yesterday she had explored quietly, observed, and taken careful notes. Today she intended to make contact, or at least to understand the Valari more deeply. Humans thrived on challenges. Observation was one thing, but true understanding required engagement. She adjusted her equipment and began the descent into the city. Her movements were careful, yet confident. Every step was deliberate, measured, but unpredictable in ways that no Valari system could calculate. Sensors in the city detected her presence, and for the first time, Valari eyes focused directly on a human. From the observation tower, Thalor watched silently. His heart, though not used to human-like emotion, felt a stirring of unease. This human did not fear. She adapted to her environment in ways that defied logic. Every step she took was calculated, yet full of spontaneity. And for the Valari, who thrived on predictability and control, this unpredictability was alarming. "She approaches the city openly," one council member said, his voice calm but tinged with curiosity. "Does she not fear detection?" Thalor shook his head. "Fear is not in her nature, or at least not as we know it. Observe closely. There is something in her presence that we cannot measure with our sensors." Mara reached the outskirts of the city, moving along a smooth, crystalline bridge. The energy flows beneath her feet pulsed gently, illuminating her path. As she walked, she noticed that the drones had begun to shadow her, maintaining distance but tracking her movements. "Interesting," Mara muttered to herself. "They observe, but they do not intervene. Yet." She paused, crouching near a small control panel embedded in the crystals. The device hummed softly. She pressed a few buttons and watched as a holographic map of the city appeared. She studied it carefully, noting power lines, energy sources, and the paths of drones. Mara's mind raced. Humans had evolved to learn quickly, adapt to threats, and exploit opportunities. While the Valari relied on logic, calculation, and structure, she relied on curiosity, intuition, and improvisation. That combination made her dangerous in ways the Valari could not yet understand. In the observation tower, Thalor leaned forward, his reflective eyes narrowing. "She is analyzing. She understands our systems faster than we anticipated, and she does so without fear." Suddenly, Mara sensed movement behind her. She spun, ready, though her hands were empty. A group of Valari approached, not aggressively but carefully, studying her. Their tall, slender forms glimmered under the sun, their eyes reflecting intelligence and caution. Mara straightened, smiling faintly. "Hello," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I am Captain Mara Klein of the human starship Aurora. I come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." The Valari froze. Communication was unusual for humans. They expected messages to be sent through devices or signals, not spoken words. The clarity and confidence in her voice caused a ripple of unease among them. One of the Valari stepped forward. "You speak?" The words were precise, almost mechanical. Mara nodded. "Yes, and I understand that you are cautious. I respect that. But I wish to learn about your civilization, your technology, and your people." The Valari exchanged glances. Fear was not part of their language, not part of their culture. But for a brief moment, Thalor recognized something strange. The human presence caused hesitation. Their minds, used to control and logic, felt uncertain. For the first time, they experienced something approaching fear, not of danger, but of the unknown. Thalor stepped forward, raising a hand. "You are unexpected. We do not anticipate visitors in this sector. How do you survive alone in a place so distant?" Mara smiled, her eyes steady. "Humanity adapts. We survive by learning, by observing, and by responding to challenges in real time. You will see that this is more effective than rigid rules and predictions." The Valari were silent. Their systems and their carefully structured logic could not immediately comprehend her statements. Mara could feel their uncertainty, the hesitation in their movements. And she realized something profound. She did not need weapons to demonstrate power. Humans had other tools: curiosity, courage, and adaptability. A drone suddenly activated nearby, projecting a defensive energy field. It was a warning, an attempt to assert control. Mara paused, studying the field carefully. She did not panic. Instead, she observed, noted its pattern, and stepped around it with grace. The Valari watching realized, with a mix of fear and awe, that she had not flinched. She had anticipated the defense mechanism instinctively and avoided it without error. One council member whispered, "She is fearless? How is that possible?" Thalor did not answer immediately. His mind worked rapidly. Humans were dangerous not because of strength, but because they were unpredictable, adaptable, and, most alarming, immune to fear in situations that would terrify other species. Mara continued deeper into the city. She explored structures, observed energy flows, and even interacted with small Valari devices. Each time, the devices responded to her presence, and she adapted, learned, and used them to understand the city. The Valari drones could only follow, unable to predict her next move. At one point, Mara entered a vast plaza where a holographic display floated above the ground. The display projected the city in motion: drones, power systems, and structural data. Mara examined it, touching the projections to manipulate the images. She traced energy patterns, noted control systems, and even identified possible weaknesses in the network. The Valari observers, including Thalor, recoiled slightly. They had never considered that a single being could analyze and adapt faster than their systems could respond. A sense of fear, deep, unfamiliar, and unwelcome, spread through the council. Thalor turned to his assistants. "We must remain calm. This is not an attack. Yet, we cannot ignore the implications. Humans possess a type of intelligence we cannot calculate." Meanwhile, Mara had reached the center of the city. Here, massive crystalline towers reached for the sky, connected by glowing bridges. She paused to study the architecture. Each tower seemed alive, pulsing with energy as if responding to thought. She touched one lightly, and it shimmered, recognizing her presence. "I see why you built this," Mara said aloud. "You value order, precision, and efficiency. But your systems are rigid. You rely on predictability. You cannot account for creativity, improvisation, or intuition." Thalor's jaw tightened. He did not speak, but the council sensed his unease. Humans were not just unpredictable. They could exploit patterns that even advanced civilizations had failed to guard against. Suddenly, a Valari patrol approached from another direction. Mara did not panic. She stepped forward and raised her hands in a universal gesture of peace. "I do not intend to harm you," she said calmly. "I wish only to learn and to understand." The Valari hesitated, unsure how to react. Thalor spoke quietly to them. "Observe, but do not engage aggressively. Do not provoke fear. Yet, Notice how she moves. She is not afraid of us. And we are afraid of what she might uncover. For the first time in Valari history, fear existed, not as a response to a threat, but as a recognition of the unknown. Mara's courage, intelligence, and adaptability had sparked it. Mara continued to explore, engaging with the environment in ways that were natural to humans, but alien to the Valari. She climbed crystalline formations, traced energy patterns, and even interacted with their floating drones, teaching them to respond to subtle gestures. The Valari watched in astonishment. Every action she took demonstrated fearlessness, adaptability, and intelligence, a combination that had no equal in their experience. By evening, Mara set up a small camp in the city's central plaza. She took out her notes and began recording observations about the Valari, their technology, and their patterns. She was calm, patient, and analytical, but never hesitant. Above, in the observation tower, Thalor and the council convened urgently. "This is not just a visitor," Thalor said, his voice steady but heavy. "She is a force we cannot predict. We rely on logic, on order, on structure, but she does not follow these rules. She adapts, learns, and thrives, and she makes us afraid in ways we have never felt." The council murmured among themselves. Fear had no place in their society. Yet it existed now, quietly but unmistakably. The human had exposed a vulnerability in their civilization, an emotional, unpredictable, and uncontrollable factor. Mara, unaware of the full effect of her presence, looked up at the twin suns setting behind the crystalline towers. She smiled faintly, knowing that humans were never meant to follow rules blindly. They were explorers, learners, adapters, and today she had demonstrated exactly why. As night fell, the city glimmered with a soft, ethereal light. Mara's heart beat with excitement. She had survived her first encounter, learned about the Valari systems, and most importantly, had shown that humans did not fear the unknown. And somewhere deep in the Valari minds, a realization spread. The arrival of a human had changed everything. For the first time, they recognized fear, not in themselves, but in the consequences of underestimating a species they had dismissed as primitive. The first day of contact ended with no conflict, yet the tension was undeniable. Humans were not like other species. They were clever, brave, and unpredictable. And for the Valari, this unpredictability would be the beginning of a profound challenge to everything they had believed about power, control, and security in the galaxy. Mara settled into her camp, her thoughts wandering to the possibilities ahead. Tomorrow, she would explore deeper, interact with the Valari more directly, and continue to learn. She knew humanity had the tools to thrive in ways no other species could. And for the Valari, tomorrow would mark the first step in a new, uncertain era. The twin suns had risen again, casting their soft, colorful light over the Valari city. Captain Mara Klein woke in her small camp in the central plaza. She stretched and surveyed the environment. Her first days had been spent quietly observing, learning patterns, and mapping out the city, but now she was ready to take a bolder step. Today, she would explore inside the city itself and uncover what the Valari had been hiding for generations. The city, as beautiful as it was, seemed too orderly. Every drone, every energy flow, every movement of the Valari followed rules. Mara noticed it immediately. Humans thrived on unpredictability. Valari thrived on precision. This difference fascinated her. While walking through the plaza, she subtly traced her path through energy patterns, noting the systems controlling the city's flow. She had learned their rhythm. With each step, she became more confident that she could move without raising alarm. From the observation tower above, Thalor watched again. He was uneasy. Humans had never been encountered in this sector, and their behavior was impossible to calculate. Mara's calm and clever maneuvers stirred something in him, a mixture of curiosity, respect, and fear. She was fearless, adaptable, and above all, she was learning too quickly. Mara paused at a wide, crystalline staircase that led to one of the tallest towers. She had noticed it from her vantage point yesterday, and she suspected it housed something important. Her instincts told her this could be the center of Valari knowledge, perhaps a library or research facility. As she ascended, she observed that the drones following her kept a safe distance. They did not intervene, only recorded. She smiled faintly. She understood their caution. At the top, Mara found a vast chamber filled with floating holographic displays. Symbols and patterns moved through the air, forming complex diagrams of energy flows and planetary systems. She reached out and traced her fingers through the projections. Her mind absorbed the information rapidly. Humans had the ability to understand patterns intuitively, and Mara's natural curiosity allowed her to make connections the Valari would never expect. As she explored, a small door caught her eye. It was hidden behind a holographic display and slightly ajar. Mara's intuition told her this was important. She pushed it open and entered a smaller, dimly lit chamber. Inside were devices that hummed quietly, monitoring the city's energy. But what drew her attention most was a set of crystalline storage units that seemed ancient, almost sacred. She carefully touched one and it activated, projecting a series of holographic images and records. Mara's eyes widened. These were not ordinary documents. They were the Valari's hidden archives. As she scrolled through the records, she discovered something astonishing. The Valari had once attempted to dominate other civilizations using fear. Long ago, they had believed that controlling weaker species would bring order to the galaxy. But the plan had failed. The other civilizations had rebelled, and the Valari were left with a hidden vulnerability they had carefully concealed ever since. They had perfected technology and intelligence, but fear remained a weakness they could not entirely erase. Mara smiled faintly. Humans had faced fear countless times in their history and had learned to turn it into courage. This gave them an advantage the Valari could not predict. She heard footsteps behind her and turned quickly. A group of Valari had entered the chamber, led by Thalor himself. His eyes, usually calm and reflective, now shone with intensity. You were not supposed to see this, Thalor said, his voice steady but tinged with worry. This knowledge is forbidden. It was never meant to leave this chamber. Mara raised her hands in a peaceful gesture. I mean no harm, but I had to understand your civilization. Humans learn through observation, and now I know your secret. You feared losing control, and you tried to hide it. Thalor stepped closer, studying her. He realized she had not just discovered the secret, she understood its implications. Humans were unpredictable. They could adapt to any situation. They could turn fear into courage. And the Valari's hidden vulnerability, long buried, was now exposed. Why do you come here? Thalor asked, his voice lower. Are you a spy, a conqueror, or something else? Mara shook her head. I am an explorer. I want to understand, to learn. Humans thrive on knowledge and cooperation, not domination. But I will not ignore danger if it threatens me, or others. Your secret, it is vulnerable. You cannot hide from the truth forever. For the first time, Thalor felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Fear. Not the fear that humans feel, but the fear of being understood. The Valari had controlled civilizations before, but never had one been observed so clearly, with such fearlessness and insight. Mara's presence alone made him reconsider everything his people had believed about security and power. Mara moved closer to the holographic projections, touching images of old Valari campaigns. You tried to control others through fear. And it failed. That's your weakness. But you've built incredible systems since then. You're brilliant but rigid. You rely on rules, and you cannot adapt as humans do. Thaler's assistants whispered among themselves. She speaks truths we cannot argue with, and yet she does not threaten us openly. What is her aim? Mara continued. Humans survive by learning, observing, and adapting. We do not fear what we do not understand. We respect knowledge, and we use it to make decisions. Your secret, it will not remain hidden. You must choose, adapt with us, or remain trapped by your own fear. Thalor's mind raced. The Valari had always been the superior species in this sector of the galaxy. Their technology, their intelligence, their structure, it was unmatched. But humans were different. They could see possibilities that rigid logic missed. They could turn fear into opportunity. You underestimate us, Thalor said finally. Your species is clever but fragile. You rely on emotion, on courage, on instinct. We rely on certainty, on calculation, on logic. One day, that will fail you. Mara smiled faintly, undaunted. Perhaps. But you underestimate what humans can endure. We survive because we adapt, because we face fear instead of hiding from it. Your civilization, your power is great, but your fear is still your weakness. Thalor realized something profound. Humans had arrived, not as conquerors or spies, but as unseen forces that challenged everything the Valari believed about the galaxy and themselves. And Mara, standing calmly in their most secure chamber, had become the symbol of that challenge. Suddenly, one of the Valari devices began to react. The energy flows she had traced earlier were detecting anomalies. Her presence, her analysis, her manipulation of the system. The room's holographic projections shimmered and reconfigured themselves. Mara remained calm. She understood the pattern. By observing, studying, and interacting with the environment, she could anticipate the device's response. She moved with precision, touching the projections to redirect their energy. The Valari watched in awe and unease. She adapts instantly, one assistant whispered. No Valari has ever done that. Thalor's mind raced. He had trained for centuries, studied countless species, and yet this human, alone, unarmed, and calm, was challenging the very foundation of Valari knowledge and control. Mara finally stepped back from the projections and studied Thalor. Your secret is revealed, she said simply. And now you have a choice. You can attempt to hide it further, or you can adapt. Humans are not your enemies, but if you continue to rely on fear as control, that will be your downfall. Thalor's voice was quiet, almost reverent. You are not what I expected. You are not afraid. You are fearless. Mara nodded. Fear is natural, yes, but humans use it. We face it. We learn from it, and we act. You, Thalor, have lived in fear of losing control. But now, you must decide if your fear will control you or if you will rise above it. For the first time, Thalor felt vulnerable. Humans were not like other species. Their courage, intelligence, and adaptability could not be measured by the tools the Valari had relied upon for millennia. And this realization, their fear of the unknown, the unpredictable, was new, unwelcome, and undeniable. The chamber fell silent. Mara studied the Valari's expressions, noting hesitation, calculation, and a flicker of something she recognized from her own species, fear of being surpassed. The Valari, brilliant as they were, had never faced an entity that could match logic with courage, analysis with instinct. Thalor finally spoke, his voice steady but thoughtful. Your arrival. It changes everything. We must reconsider how we see ourselves and how we see others. Humans, you are unique. Mara smiled, her calm demeanor unshaken. Thank you. That is all I ask. For you to understand that humans are not bound by your rules, your logic, or your fear. We survive because we face the unknown, and we adapt. The day ended with a quiet understanding between them. Mara had revealed the Valari's greatest secret, their fear of losing control, and in doing so, had shown the strength of humanity. Thalor and his council realized that this single human, fearless, intelligent, and adaptive, had shifted the balance. The galaxy itself might never view humans the same way again. As Mara left the chamber, she looked out over the city below. The Valari observed silently, aware that their civilization had been challenged by a being unlike any they had ever known. The first contact had been made, and the revelation of the secret had changed everything. The universe was vast, and Mara had only just begun to explore it. But one truth was clear: humans were capable of extraordinary things. And the Valari had learned, perhaps for the first time, that fear could be a weapon, and courage could be even stronger. The twin suns rose slowly over the Valari city, their light spilling across the crystalline towers and glowing bridges. Captain Mara Klein stood on a high platform overlooking the city, her eyes scanning the environment below. The Valari had grown accustomed to her presence, but there was still tension in the air. She had uncovered their secret, demonstrated her intelligence, and revealed the unpredictable nature of humanity. Now it was time to take the next step. Mara had learned much about the Valari in the past days. Their civilization was orderly, advanced, and logical, but it was rigid. They relied on rules, structure, and control, and they feared unpredictability. Humans, by contrast, thrived on adaptation, creativity, and courage. Mara understood that to gain their cooperation, she would need to show them the value of these qualities, not through weapons, but through demonstration. She descended toward the city, walking through streets lined with silent drones and towering structures. The Valari watched from observation points, their reflective eyes studying every movement. Mara remained calm. Humans were never reckless without reason. They were daring because they could think and adapt in ways others could not. At the city center, a large assembly chamber opened before her, a place where the Valari Council usually met in secrecy. Today, they had gathered to witness her arrival. Thalor, the council leader, stepped forward, his expression measured but uncertain. He had spent sleepless cycles considering Mara's presence and the implications of her discoveries. "Mara Klein," Thalor began, his voice clear, "you have uncovered truths we have hidden for centuries. You have observed our systems, understood our methods, and revealed our vulnerabilities. Why do you not act against us?" Mara smiled, her calm presence unshaken. "Because humans are not here to dominate. We are here to understand, to learn, and to offer cooperation. But I also know that knowledge brings responsibility. You have hidden your fear for too long. That fear has shaped your decisions and limited your potential. Humans survive by facing fear, not by hiding from it. That is why we are capable of things you cannot fully predict." Thalor paused, considering her words. His people had always believed that logic and order were enough to maintain strength. Yet this human, standing confidently before them, had demonstrated something else entirely: courage paired with intelligence, adaptability paired with insight. One of the Valari council members spoke cautiously. "If we acknowledge her abilities, what guarantee do we have that humans will not turn against us?" Mara's eyes met theirs. "There is no guarantee, but humans are guided by choices, understanding, and mutual respect. We adapt to situations, not rigid rules. We do not fear cooperation when it leads to growth, and we do not fear knowledge. It is how we thrive." Thalor's mind raced. The Valari had relied on control, fear, and logic for millennia. Now those methods seemed insufficient. They had glimpsed a species that could challenge everything they had built, not with weapons, but with courage, intelligence, and unpredictability. Mara moved forward, demonstrating her understanding of the city's energy systems. She interacted with the floating drones, guiding them with subtle gestures and showing the Valari how her insights could improve their efficiency without breaking their structure. The council observed, initially skeptical, then increasingly fascinated. "You are showing us a way we have never considered," Thalor admitted. "Your methods are different, yet effective. Humans do not fear failure in the same way we do. You embrace challenge as opportunity." Mara nodded. "Exactly. Fear limits potential, but courage allows growth. Your civilization is brilliant, but your fear of unpredictability has held you back. Humans have learned to turn fear into strength. That is why we are here, to offer a new perspective, not to conquer." The council murmured among themselves, some hesitant, some intrigued. The Valari had always relied on control, but this human had shown them that adaptability could be a form of strength even greater than order. Thalor stepped closer. "You claim cooperation. Can humans truly integrate with a civilization so different from their own?" Mara's eyes sparkled with determination. "We have integrated with others before, learning their ways while bringing our strengths. You may find our methods strange, but they are effective. Humans adapt. We do not impose control through fear. We build trust and understanding. That is how civilizations thrive together." A younger council member, curious and bold, asked, "If humans are so unpredictable, how can we trust them?" Mara responded calmly, "Trust is built through actions, not assumptions. Observe us, engage with us, and you will see our intentions are consistent. Knowledge, growth, and mutual benefit. Fear is a tool you have used for centuries. Humans understand fear, but we do not allow it to dominate our choices. That is why we survive where others fail." Thalor considered this deeply. His people had mastered logic, engineering, and strategy, yet they had never faced an entity that could combine intelligence with instinct so seamlessly. The realization struck him profoundly. Humans were not only different, they were extraordinarily capable. The day progressed with Mara demonstrating practical applications of her understanding. She recalibrated energy flows, suggested improvements in the city's systems, and even worked with Valari drones to optimize their routines. Every move was precise, yet fluid, unpredictable, yet effective. The council observed, slowly realizing the implications. A single human could challenge centuries of Valari assumptions and systems. By midday, Thalor called for a formal meeting in the main assembly chamber. Mara entered, and all council members were present. Thalor's voice carried across the chamber, steady yet respectful. "Mara Klein, your presence has shown us our limitations. Your understanding, courage, and adaptability have revealed truths we never wished to face. Humans are different, and in that difference lies great potential, not just for conflict but for cooperation." Mara smiled faintly. "That is all I seek. Not conflict, not control, but understanding. Humans can help your civilization grow beyond fear, beyond rigidity. Together we can achieve far more than either species alone." A council member hesitated, then asked, "What do you want in return?" Mara paused, considering carefully. "Respect, understanding, and the ability to continue exploring and learning. I offer knowledge, cooperation, and insight. That is all. No demands, no control. Humans seek only to understand and to grow." Thalor nodded slowly. "Very well. Humans will be acknowledged as equals in this sector, under the principles of mutual respect and cooperation. Your actions have proven that fear is not always a weakness. Sometimes it is a lesson. And humans, you have taught us that courage, intelligence, and adaptability are forces even greater than control. Mara exhaled, relieved but aware that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and humans had much to explore. But for now, the Valari had recognized the value of partnership, the strength of humanity, and the limits of their own fears. As the Council deliberated on integration and future cooperation, Mara walked through the city streets. Valari drones followed her, no longer just observing but participating in her work. The citizens watched silently, curiosity replacing initial apprehension. Mara smiled to herself. Humans had arrived, not with aggression, but with insight and courage, and that alone had shifted the balance. By evening, the city glowed under the twin suns as Mara set up a temporary research station. She recorded her observations, documenting her interactions and discoveries. The Valari had begun to learn from her methods. They asked questions, observed her problem-solving, and slowly, hesitantly, began to adopt some of her adaptive strategies. Thalor approached her at sunset, his reflective eyes thoughtful. "Mara, your presence has changed how we view the galaxy and ourselves. Humans are remarkable. You teach by example, and through that, even our most rigid minds begin to reconsider their assumptions." Mara nodded. "That is the human way. We survive by learning, adapting, and acting with courage. Fear is natural, but we do not let it control us. You can choose to embrace that, and your civilization will grow beyond anything you imagined." Thalor remained silent for a moment, then said, Perhaps it is time we reconsidered how we wield power. Your arrival has taught us a lesson we never expected. The galaxy may change, and humans will be at the center of that change." Mara smiled, feeling the weight of possibility. She had not come to conquer, but to explore, to understand, and to demonstrate the unique strengths of humanity. And in doing so, she had shown that fear can be a lesson, courage can be a weapon, and intelligence paired with adaptability can surpass even the most advanced systems. That night, Mara looked up at the stars, the Valari city glowing softly behind her. She knew this was only the beginning. The Valari had acknowledged humans not as conquerors, but as partners, as beings capable of extraordinary feats. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown civilizations and endless possibilities. But one truth was clear. Humans had arrived, and they had already changed the course of history. Their courage, insight, and adaptability had demonstrated that fear was not always weakness, and intelligence was not always enough. In a universe ruled by logic and control, humans were a force unlike any other, a species that could face the unknown, understand it, and thrive. And for the Valari, the lesson was unforgettable. Fear had been revealed, but courage and understanding had triumphed. Humanity had proven that it was more than survival. It was the spark that could inspire civilizations to reach beyond the limits of logic, fear, and control. Mara turned to leave the city for the night, knowing that tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more interactions, and more opportunities to learn and teach. The galaxy awaited, and humanity was ready. In the end, one small human had arrived and shown an entire civilization that the strength of the mind, the courage of the heart, and the power of adaptability could change the galaxy itself. And with that realization, the Valari understood. The human had not only revealed their secret, they had reshaped the future.